Secretary Hegseth actually said it just unambiguously what the goal of acquisition is. We need to deliver things with speed and urgency, and we failed to do that in a timely manner. I mean, speed, urgency, and good enough. And we actually had 70, 65 years of cruft in our acquisition process that we confused optimizing the process versus optimizing delivery. It's a big idea. We put every rule, regulation, this thing called the National Defense Authorization Act, which Congress writes, which says what the military can spend and buy. In 1961, you know how many pages it had? Any idea, guys? How many pages?
Not back then, I can tell you today.
One. Today, this year's 3,400 pages. Now think about that, right? Who reads 3,400 pages? Well, you're supposed to, because we just spent lots of time with lots of people who thought their jobs was moving the paper from one end of the Pentagon to the other, which might have taken years. And by the way, that was okay in the Cold War when our adversary was the Soviet Union, who had an equally complex and Byzantine system. And when we became the only superpower, when the Soviet Union fell apart, ISIS and Al-Qaeda were using pencil and paper and maybe Excel. But in the last 10 or 15 years, China emerged as not just a near peer. Some places were the near peer. Well, what system do they use? Well, on a good day, General Motors, the Department of Defense operated like General Motors, and China adopted Silicon Valley methodologies, which basically was the lean methodology we kind of developed, which says build minimum viable products, rapidly test them, iterate them, and everything that matters is speed and urgency and deployment in front of customers. Meanwhile, we were still operating on a paperwork process that said, gee, .mlpf, 30-year life cycles, whatever, which might have made sense for aircraft carriers, but doesn't make sense for attritable systems like drones and the rest. And our acquisition system didn't keep up with these ideas. What came in the last year was a radical view that says we're going to rip this out from root and branch. This is just the system we put in place doesn't work. It can't. We can't keep going on like this, and we just see it numerically. The number of DDGs or destroyers China puts in the water every year versus us. The number of generations of aircrafts they're building, in not only the number. And to me, the one that no one talks about is the North Korea missile systems that they've developed in the last 10 years. They've developed 6 more missile systems than we have in the last 40. We can't even keep up with North Korea. I mean, that's a little embarrassing. Our Sentinel, ICBM replacement is, we're going to spend probably $250 billion, and we're still in paperwork. So our system is essentially collapsing, or had collapsed under its own weight, which was kind of okay when there was no adversary that was using a different system. It's now pretty clear that it needed to change. The problem in any large organization when you make changes like this is that the folks in the middle, that is the professionals who've been around doing their jobs and doing their jobs as per what they were taught to do. There was a whole university for acquisition called Defense Acquisition University that taught you how to move the paperwork. Well, now we essentially need a re-education camp for that middle. What could go wrong is, people in the middle just saying, well, we'll wait this out. We'll wait till this administration changes and we'll wait till the primes now become, important again and blah, blah, blah. The problem is that's not good for the country. What's good for the country is actually the concepts that we've put in place in the last year, which said we'll take anything now versus waiting for perfect later, right? Perfect is the enemy of what's needed.